Hey YouTube, this is Steve from Average Joe's Fantasy Football. We got your Week 17 championship round for the fantasy playoffs. This is going to be for the running back edition. Again, if you are new to the channel, this is always based off of full PPR and half PPR. If it is standard, you may want to hit us up in the comments. We might have a different suggestion for you guys because, again, that obviously changes the way you play. If you guys have not already, make sure you check out our start and sit video for the quarterback position. Or if you need some help with waivers, we've got our waiver wire video as well to give you guys some players that you might want to add to your team to help get you that championship this week. Now, these are your obvious starts at the running back position. I've got a few guys here that I recommend in here that should be an automatic start no matter what the situation is. Just again, matchup, or they just are the RB1 in that roster that just gets plenty of targets. Now, the first running back I want to mention as a good start this week is Travis Etienne versus the Texans. Etienne has been very inconsistent lately, and let's be honest. Anybody who's had him on your roster has felt it this season. But if you're still in the championship this week, they finally started to use him again, right? It's as if the Jaguars forgot who he was, used Trevor Lawrence, and then that was it. But Houston's allowing 25 points to fantasy to running backs the last 3 weeks. They're giving up 4 touchdowns in the last 3 games as well. And they're the league worst, allowing 140 rushing yards on the ground. This is a game where I really do feel that they're going to be up. Obviously, the Texans aren't fighting for much except for trying to ruin the Jaguars' possible chances of going into, the playoffs. This game does have a big factor, but not a huge one. It's not like where the Jacksonville Jaguars need to beat the Titans to get in the playoffs. So this isn't as big of a deal, but it still matters. And I like this matchup for Etienne. I like this one for him. He's going to have a really good game. He's definitely somebody I'm considering starting. Another running back I recommend this week is to be Tyler Algier versus the Cardinals. Cardinals are allowing 22.1 points to running backs the last 4 games. Algier has seen about 18 carries in the last 2 games. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're really trying to see what he can do, right? He did a really good job earlier this season with Cordell Patterson out. He did a really good job filling in. He wasn't quite the guy yet. Now that the fact that obviously the Falcons essentially are out of this, they are obviously wanting to use their younger talent, see where they're at, evaluate them. That's why Ritter's starting. That's why you've got Algier getting more touches than Patterson. So at this point, Patterson's not somebody I feel comfortable with, even though this is a really tempting matchup. Algier has done a really good job. He got 15 points last week in fantasy. The week before, they had 22 points. So this is a good matchup for him. He can get you that 15 to 20 point range just because he's been very, very good and efficient. So I like him this week. Another running back I'm considering starting this week is Brian Robinson based off my rosters. He's going against the Browns this week. Browns are allowing 117 yards on the ground, and they're also allowing 5 reception per game to the running back. So Brian Robinson's not necessarily the pass catching back that you're hoping he would be. That's Antonio Gibson's job. Now, Antonio Gibson's been missing practice this week, so there's a good chance he does not play, which would add some extra value to Brian Robinson this week. Now, Brian Robinson, again, is the bell cow for the Washington Commanders. Winston's back, which I think they're going to use him. Again, Brian Robinson is going to be the focal point, but they'll use Wins. Last 5 games, the Browns have allowed 21.4 points to running backs. Again, the reception side is the only thing I have a concern with. If Gibson does play, Gibson has some upside, maybe a nice little flex play, but I like Robinson a lot this week. Now, as far as running backs, I'm recommending sitting this week of some pretty big names in this one. A lot of it might be some hot takes for some of you guys, but this is just based off of stats and where they stand. Right now, I have Josh Jacobs as someone I'm recommending sitting. Again, this is going to be based off your roster. Obviously, if Josh Jacobs is your stud and you have absolutely nobody else, you're going to have to play him. But he's going against the 49ers, really tough matchup. And then with that said, Derek Carr is now officially out of the Raiders, at least for the last 2 games, possibly his career. We'll see how that plays out. So this is a really tough one. They're going to obviously lean on Jacobs. The 49ers know Jacobs is really the only weapon now that Derek Carr is not there. So this is one I'm really considering sitting for the championship. You're going to have to make sometimes those gutsy calls. You know your roster the best. You know what you've got. You might have to ask some questions, but right now, 49ers have held running backs to 10.41 points in fantasy. Jacobs just had a really bad game last week, so some of you guys may not even had really survived with his 6 points last week. Some of you guys may be watching this week and you're like, wow, that 6 points actually saved me from not losing. But this is a really tough matchup. This is not one I'm really looking at. I don't know. And the week before that, Jacobs only put up 13 fantasy points. This is just really tough to put in there. I know he's done a phenomenal job all season, but I would definitely look to see if there's some other options. Again, some of the players that I mentioned in the starts video, maybe the obvious side of it. just ask us if you have questions. We might be able to give you some answers. Another running back I'm considering this week is Derrick Henry. Going against the Cowboys for Thursday night game, for the primetime game. There's a big if in this game. He may not play. He's been dealing with an injury, and there's a good chance they sit him just because there's no real value in this game for the Tennessee Titans. It's the following week. So they may rest him just to make sure that he's healthy for that game. Dallas also has only allowed 12.33 points to running backs the last 6 games. They've only allowed one 100-yard game, which was to Etienne, which is a really good game out of him. Henry is dealing with that injury, which is a big issue. Other than that, he's obviously somebody you're really confident in. And there's a good chance with Dallas that they're going to be up big if Derrick does play, which really just negates his real ultimate talent, which is the ground and pound type of style for Derrick Henry. Can he catch the ball? Yeah, absolutely. He's shown that in plenty of games. But if Tennessee is down big, Malik Willis is at quarterback, there's a good chance Derrick Henry is in play. So I'm definitely considering some other options. Another running back, another big name, I guess you would say, is Najee Harris versus the Ravens this week. I'm looking at sitting him. Last outing a couple weeks ago, Najee only put up 13 fantasy points. He may be used as a flex depending on your roster, so I don't hate it too much. This is a Sunday night game in Baltimore, which makes this a really tough one for Najee to really start in your championship game. I would consider the options for the running back or running back 2. Again, at flex, I don't hate Najee at the flex, but again, just look at some other options. Even at flex, you might put a receiver in there that might put up more points. Because again, this is a really tough matchup for Najee against the Baltimore Ravens. Again, ever since Roquan Smith has really been added to that roster, that defense has changed and has improved quite a bit. We don't know what's going to happen when Lamar Jackson has not been announced. Obviously, if Lamar does come in, that might change also the dynamic of this game as well. Because if Baltimore's up big, Najee kind of gets negated. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, as far as running back I'm looking at as a sleeper, I've got Michael Carter versus the Seahawks. Seattle has struggled against the run this season, pretty big. They're allowing 28.9 points to running backs at 118 yards on the ground. On top of that, they're allowing 5 receptions per game. So some of you might put Bam Knight in there. I understand Bam Knight, but he struggled drastically as the RB1 in the last couple weeks. He's averaged only 2 points to each of the last 2 games. Carter's seen more work in the passing game. He's had some value at 10 fantasy points last week because of the passing game. He's definitely the receiving back compared to Bam Knight. And this backfield really is a split backfield. So depending on how this plays out for New York against Seattle, there's definitely a chance that Michael Carter gets more touches and more targets his way, which can get you that double-digit flex play. So I like Michael Carter as a nice little sleeper. So those are my start, sits, and sleepers at the running back edition. If you guys do have questions for this Week 17 championship of your lineup, or not just running backs, but other positions as well, hit us up in the comments down below. We're going to try to give you the best stats and recommendations for you guys. It's your ultimate choice, but we do want to give you some insight to help you guys pick the right player for your lineup. If you guys are new to the channel and you guys enjoy the content, make sure that subscribe button and that notification bell is on. It is greatly appreciated. We're getting closer and closer to that 1,000 subscriber mark. So thank you guys all who have subscribed, and thank you to all who will subscribe. So thank you. Also, if you guys enjoy the content, make sure you hit that like button and share this among other league mates that are not going against you. If you're still not in the championship, or if you have some friends that are in the championship that are in another league, share this with them. They'll hopefully help them out, and they'll thank you later. If you guys also have not, check out our start and sit video for quarterback. Stay tuned for our start and sit for wide receiver and tight end, and I'll check you guys out next time.